How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to the Timeless Movie Podcast, episode number 89. My name is Victor Vasquez. Appreciate you joining me on another discussion, another journey where we talk about a new film. We break it down, what we liked about it, what we didn't like about it, whether I would consider it timeless. That's the ultimate question. Is it something that I would add to my library of favorite movies that I could just, one day, whatever I'm feeling, get it off the shelf and watch it and rewatch it and continuously just get that same feeling and emotion on a movie that I just really enjoyed. Now, everybody's library of timeless movies is different. Some people like animation, other people like horror. If you've heard me for long enough through these 89 episodes, I'm really big into action, really big into superhero movies. So that's kind of a common theme of my library, but I like to mix it up here and there. But before we dive into what this movie is, I did want to call out that if you haven't checked out last week's episode number 88, I talked about Joker Folie à Deux, one of the most divisive movies over the last couple of years. There's people that hate it, people that love it. You just get a wide range of what people's emotions are about that film. If you haven't seen the episode, if you haven't heard my thoughts, here's a link up above on this video that'll kind of describe what I enjoyed about the movie. Give it a listen and let me know in the comments what you thought about Joker Folie à Deux and if you thought it was timeless. All right, let's go into this week's episode though. This film is actually not a movie that came out in theaters. Instead, it is a movie that came out on Netflix and it is called Rebel Ridge. I am late to the party on this movie. I had heard about it in September, didn't think much of it. Netflix doesn't really have a good run of movies for me personally. I've seen a lot of different movies. I think one of them was like Red Notice with Dwayne Johnson and Ryan Reynolds and Gal Gadot. And, it was okay. And different types of movies that have come out on Netflix, I give them a shot, but they're never anything spectacular. I don't believe in my memory that I've actually added a Netflix movie as like a timeless movie to my collection. But I still wanted to give this one a shot, mostly because I had heard such good things about this movie. People were saying that it's a great action movie, one of the best action movies of this year. Again, I know that some of it can just be hyperbole, some people just kind of hyping it up, but I thought, you know what? I have a little bit of a space here before I see another new movie in theaters, so why not give Rebel Ridge a shot? So I checked it out over the weekend, and let's go ahead and dive into my thoughts. Overall, after I watched Rebel Ridge, I gotta say that this movie was incredible. I was really surprised at how many great things I enjoyed about this movie. And again, I didn't want to hype myself too much. I had heard a lot of great things on different podcasts that I listened to. People were saying again that everything was so cool and interesting, and it just caught everybody off guard because it wasn't really marketed really big. I mean, it's just on Netflix, so there's not too much marketing unless you have a Netflix account. So I would see it here and there, but I was really just blown away at how good it was. I think by the 30 to 45 minute mark, I was in. I was I was all in. I was locked into what I was watching on the screen, and I just wanted to know where the heck was this story going to take me. There was so much to enjoy. There was the characters, the action sequences, the choreography was well done. Even the setting of like where this film was kind of shot and taking place, everything just worked for me. And there's so many different types of twists and turns. And I don't mean it from the perspective of like, oh man, like some character ends up dying or something, this happens, this happens. It's more just so like the story itself is taking you in one direction. Oh, nope. And then it pivots to another and then it pivots back. And I enjoy when I don't know where the finish line is for a movie, but I'm also interested because sometimes it sucks when you're watching a movie and you kind of don't know where the finish line is, but you're also confused along the way. That's probably the worst experience. And I was never fully confused in Rebel Ridge. How I kind of like to describe this movie is almost like a tug of war between Terry, the main protagonist, who's played by Aaron Pierre, and Sandy Byrne, the police chief of Shelby Springs. And Sandy Byrne is actually played by Don Johnson. And so you have this tug of war between Terry and the police chief, and each one is trying to get an upper hand on each other. And again, sometimes it goes in favor of Terry, who just has this wealth of experience in hand-to-hand combat. And then you have the crookedness of Sandy Byrne and his police department. So everybody under him basically follows his rules. And you just see it all play out. And you're just kind of curious, okay, like what the heck is going to go down between these two? Just as an overall summary, to kind of give you an idea as to what is being played out in the film, the story follows Terry, as I mentioned before, played by Aaron Pierre. He is an ex Marine who is basically trying to compile money. He's trying to, I think at the beginning of the film, he has about $30,000. He's going to use some of the money to bail out his cousin who is in jail, and then use the rest of it to actually buy a truck to start a new life. He's an ex Marine. He's just trying to start an entirely new journey and a new chapter with his cousin. And he's hoping to use this money again just to kind of kick things off and start with a fresh slate. But as he goes into the city of Shelby Springs, he starts to notice that things aren't what they seem, because right at the beginning, he basically gets clipped by a police car, and then he basically gets arrested. He gets his 30K confiscated, and then he ends up having this squabble with the police, and eventually he ends up meeting Sandy Byrne, the police chief. And all he's trying to do is basically get his money, get his cousin out of jail, and just move on. And he is not able to do that here in Shelby Springs. And so during the film, he's basically just trying to make a deal with Sandy Byrne so that nothing crazy happens. But eventually, as you see in the story unfold, they end up pushing Terry a little too far, and he just has to take justice into his own hands. So really crazy stuff. And in between all this corruption that you're seeing and this all these crooked cops, you have great action sequences. You have this kind of a mystery and thriller of like, well, what is corrupt about this police department? What are they secretly doing? What are they doing with all this money that they're confiscating? So all this awesome stuff that is kind of playing out within this action movie. And again, it just hit for me. Everything clicked. The characters were cool. The choreography that they were playing out, a lot of great hand-to-hand combat, a specific section that's a little kind of gory in regards to the action that was taking place. But all of it, I just enjoyed, and I thought it was an awesome movie that I was really watching. Even with the thriller and mystery part of the film, I was just really engaged to it. I wanted to know, okay, like, well, how's Terry going to get out of this situation? Is he going to have to take out the police chief? What the heck is going to go on? But all of it, everything kind of just worked. And I think what also benefited of my enjoyment of this movie is the characters were actually interesting. There's a lot of times where some movies, some Netflix movies even, some characters just, you don't really care for them. You're not really invested in what they're doing. But here, I was I was just interested in like, okay, how is Terry going to get out of this? I cared for what Terry was going through and how he was just going to try to find a way to get even with this corrupt city and the police department. So all of it was awesome. If you're looking for a cool action movie and you have about 2 hours and 15 minutes over the weekend or during the week, and you just want to see a fun kind of story unfold in front of you with various twists and turns, please, please, I highly recommend checking out Rebel Ridge. It is awesome. And I think over the weekend or a couple days ago, we just got announced that Aaron Pierre, who plays Terry, actually just got cast as the Green Lantern in James Gunn's DC universe. So a little bit of a glimpse of what you're going to see as the Green Lantern. Obviously, he's not going to play the same kind of character, but just kind of gives you the image of how he looks. And so it was awesome. I really enjoyed everything about this movie. Those are just kind of my non-spoiler thoughts. Let's go ahead and dive into some spoilers, though. But before we do that, if you haven't seen Rebel Ridge and you don't want to be spoiled, make sure to jump out, come back in after you've actually seen the movie. That way we can discuss in the comments what we thought about Rebel Ridge. All right, hopefully that gives you enough time. Let's go ahead and dive in. Pros and cons, spoilers ahead in regards to Rebel Ridge. I was talking a little bit about in my overall thoughts of the overall kind of setting and how everything is kind of just taking place in Shelby Springs. And this kind of leads me into my first pro. The way that this film was shot is something that I have to call out. It just looked so good, but it's not that like the cinematography was like something amazing that blew me away. It was more so that there wasn't these unnecessary filters that you normally see for Netflix movies. This film, Rebel Ridge, looked better than 90% of any Netflix movie that comes out this year. It's just, it doesn't have this kind of weird either effect or filter that a lot of Netflix movies have, or there's not a lot of CGI. It just looks grounded. It looks authentic. It looks like an actual city that is in Louisiana. That makes it so much more of an enjoyable experience because when you're looking at the characters and they're walking around the city, or you see Terry kind of going through and finding the police department and trying to just get a police report filled out, everything just feels like it's an actual place that you can visit. And I enjoy when movies are done to that kind of an extent because now you can kind of focus on, okay, yeah, nothing in the background is distracting me. I can actually focus on the dialogue, focus on the reactions of the actors. So the way that this film was shot and the way that there was none of these unnecessary filters, it just worked so well for me. And another part of the editing that was so cool is these one shots that they were pulling off. There was a one shot in the third act when Terry is just using all this different type of weaponry against the police department, and that was awesome. There's also various different types of one shots between characters. Really well done overall. Just the fact that, again, my pro, just having it look better than Netflix, not having it look like other films. I feel like there's just so much that we can kind of learn in regards to, let's not look like other movies. Let's try to be unique. Let's use a different angle, use some different type of cinematography, just anything. Just don't look similar. And so I'm really happy that it didn't look like a Netflix movie. Second pro that I want to call out is more in line with the characters of this movie. I want to give a shout out to the casting directors of Rebel Ridge. I believe that it is Francine Maisler and Molly Rose. Hopefully, again, said their names right. But shout out to them. They chose a cast of actors that every single one fit their role. You have Terry, played by Aaron Pierre, who is, again, ex Marine, very stoic, very specific in regards to some of the things that he's saying. But when he has to actually say something, have a statement, you believe what he is saying. It is his intent is always serious. And I love that. But also the aspect I think that I love most is the actors that played some of the crooked cops. Don Johnson as the police chief, Sandy Byrne, he just had this cockiness, this type of arrogance while he was walking around that he knew he was a big shot. He was the king of Shelby Springs. But just the way he played it off really just it made me just want to hate this guy so much. And I think when a movie or a show even can make you hate these characters, they have done their job. Also, got to call out some of the officers. You have Officer Steve Land, played by Emery Cohen. He had such a slimy and sinister look at his face. You knew that there was just something bad about this guy, and he was going to be some type of antagonist that was going to screw over Terry. And you see him right from the beginning and all the way to the end. He is the same slimy way. So great job. Again, that just adds so much to the audience's experience when you have these types of characters that are different, right? Not every character is acting the same. Not all characters are very extroverted or introverted. You have different dimensions between these characters. And especially just by the looks and the way that they're playing these roles, I really loved it. So shout out to the casting directors on Rebel Ridge. They chose a cool list of actors to play these roles, and every performance was at least well done for me. Not going to say that Oscar worthy in any way, but I feel like when the roles and the actors just kind of fall hand in hand, everything makes that experience of the movie much more enjoyable to watch. All right, third pro that I have for Rebel Ridge is I just love the way that this story unpacks itself. The story is so simple of how it starts. It's literally just Terry wanting to bail out his cousin and buy a truck. That's literally the start of this story, and that's all Terry in his mind, all he wants to do before he gets in trouble with the police department of Shelby Springs. And then as you go through, you start to appreciate, okay, like, okay, so now he gets his money confiscated. Well, where is he going to get the money to get his cousin out? And then eventually his cousin gets sent to a penitentiary. Well, he doesn't want him to go to a penitentiary because he doesn't want him to get hurt. And so now he's trying to find ways, make deals with the crooked cops at Shelby Springs. And you start noticing the story twist and turn and go back and forth. First, Terry is able to then make a deal and take advantage of the police department, and then the police department takes advantage of him. You start noticing all these different types of interactions. And again, by the end of the film, I did not expect that. Again, all Terry wanted to do was bail out his cousin. And at the end of the film, he ends up finding a way to get justice against the police department of Shelby Springs, but it wasn't in any way that I expected. So, really awesome job when you can keep your audience guessing based on different types of situations that are happening in your story. It is not predictable. One of my pet peeves of watching movies is that if I can already kind of predict what is going to happen and it happens right in front of me while I'm watching a movie, that kind of lowers my experience because although, yes, I'm trying to guess at the same time, I also, in my head, I don't want to get it right. I want the story to surprise me. And this film, throughout the 2 hours, it surprised me with the different situations that they were put in and how they were able to get out of it. So, oh man, everything, and also I think what I appreciated so much more about this movie is that it's 2 hours and 20 minutes, but it all goes so fast. One of the pieces of that is because of the action sequences, everything that's kind of unfolding in regards to what Terry is doing, using different types of weapons, sneaking around the police department, all of that stuff. You're just so in the moment that you don't even feel that it's 2 hours. So that's my pro in regards to the film, how the actual story unfolds and unpacks itself, the various twists and turns. Long winded answer, but I just really enjoyed where the story was taking me in Rebel Ridge. All right, those are some of my pros. Let's move into just the one con that I had about the movie. I really liked the mystery elements and the thriller piece of what was going on in Terry's world within Shelby Springs. But I do want to say there probably was a lot of information that was thrown out at the audience because you're understanding that Terry just wants to get his cousin out. You then find out that he ended up giving away some information. And so if he goes to the penitentiary, he's probably going to get hurt or even killed. And then you also find out, okay, well, the police department, they're corrupt and they're taking money, but what are they using the money for? Are they laundering it for a specific reason? Why are they only taking certain folks for misdemeanor charges? All this different stuff. So the film is throwing a lot at you. And as the story is kind of going from beat to beat, you're just trying to do your best to follow. And some things might get missed, some things make sense. So again, I would say that even though I enjoyed where I was going from point A to point B to point C, some of it could get overwhelming just because you're trying to follow and guess what the heck is going to happen. What has this police department been doing and how long have they been doing it? And who's going to give us that exposition, right? Who's going to give us that information? But again, a few times it could be hard to follow. I had a little bit of trouble, maybe in the second act of the movie as they're explaining what this police department is responsible for and what they're doing with that money. So just want to throw that as my slight con. It still did not make me want to like move away from the movie or any of that. To me, that was just my only little con is that there is a lot of information that they're trying to unpack for you in order to kind of give you the sense of what is this police department really up to? What are they sneakily doing behind everyone's backs? So that's the only thing that I have really to call out. Let's go ahead and go back to some of the positives. I want to call out some of my favorite moments, my favorite performance, and my favorite shot. Favorite performance, gotta go with Aaron Pierre as Terry. Like I mentioned, he had such a calmness and a stoic ability as he was going through the movie. He was never caught in a situation where he was didn't know what to do, and even emotionally, he only had like one outburst throughout the film when he just got really frustrated of like how he was going to get his cousin out of jail. Other than that, he was always prepared. He was always ready and knew, okay, this is how I'm going to take advantage of this situation. Here's how I'm going to get around and trick the police department into thinking I'm going one way, but I'm actually going in an opposite direction. He was always 3 steps ahead, almost getting that Batman type of a feeling. That might just be me, but I really enjoy when characters are always a couple of steps ahead of their competition. And, even though he knows what he's going to do, the audience and the antagonist don't really know, which makes it that much more intriguing. So the way that Aaron Pierre played that character, again, very stoic, very intent on his actions, really well done. And like I mentioned before, really excited to see what else Aaron Pierre will pop up in the future. So Terry, played by Aaron Pierre, is my favorite performance in Rebel Ridge. Favorite moment? I have a couple. The final act of the movie, just combining the action and what Terry was doing in order to, he basically takes all of the armory of the police department and he basically starts using all those weapons against them. They're non-lethal, but he uses tear gas. He uses these different types of guns. He then drops all the guns and then starts using a couple of nice martial arts moves to take down some guys. And then he eventually breaks the arm and elbow. And you see a bone literally pop out after Terry does that action. But it was just such a cool scene because you have all this tear gas and smoke going around the police department. So Terry is just sneaking through using his ex-Marine capabilities and what he learned. And so it was so well done, really well edited. So it just made that whole scene very intense. I also got to call out one of my favorite moments was actually a face off between Terry and the police chief, Sandy Byrne. Not a face off in regards to actual physical altercations, more so a psychological one. Just both of them facing off, and you have Terry explaining to Sandy that, hey, you confiscated my money, you lied to me about my cousin, so here's what I'm gonna do. And he starts giving him abbreviations that he learned in the Marines. That whole interaction between the two, that's kind of where that tug of war analogy came in my mind, because you just have Sandy who does not want to give in to Terry. He does not want to show fear, and Terry shows no fear at all. And so you're just seeing both of them competing to see who can scare the other. Really well done in those types of interactions. And that interaction between Sandy Byrne and Terry kind of leads me to my favorite shot when they're just outside of the police department talking face to face, neither one of them giving it an inch. That is actually my favorite shot. That whole shot of just them competing against each other, showing each other, hey, this is a pissing contest. Well, let's see who's going to come out on top. And I really enjoyed that. So those are my favorite things about Rebel Ridge. Again, favorite performance, favorite moment, and favorite shot. What were your guys' favorite moments, though, and favorite elements of Rebel Ridge? Let me know down below. That way we can kind of interact and see if you guys agree or disagree with some of the things that I called out. All right, everybody. Now we're getting to the last segment in which we're going to decide, is Rebel Ridge timeless? Now, this is just my personal opinion after watching the movie once, but I can honestly say that Rebel Ridge is a timeless movie for me. Like I mentioned before, and I've stated this various times, so it's probably a broken record for people that have listened before. I'm really into the action genre. This genre has so much that I enjoy, so many things going on, whether it's explosions, hand to hand combat, whether it's the character getting out of a sticky situation. All those elements are things that I just enjoy, maybe because I wish I could do that. And I know that in my life, I can't in any way escape or fight somebody in that kind of a way. So I think it's the illusion of, man, being able to see somebody pull that off looks so incredible and so fantastic that I wish I could do that. And that kind of makes me enjoy these types of movies even more. It's like seeing somebody pull off something or get justice, for what they deserve, just makes those experiences that much more enjoyable to me. But it's not only the action of why I would rewatch this movie, how this story was able to just kind of tell me a specific direction that it's going, and then boom, pivots to another direction. And I just really enjoyed how the different turns that this story was trying to explain to me and where we ended up. I appreciated that, and I would definitely recommend people to check it out. And maybe this is a piece where people might disagree with me. Maybe you feel like, well, no, the story just kind of flows very simply or doesn't really surprise me in any way. To me, I was always just surprised. At one point, you have Terry and this character named Summer trying to find evidence to pin against these corrupt police department. And at first, you're thinking, okay, they found the evidence. Nope, the police have already burned down the evidence that they were trying to pull against them. Okay, well, we got to find another strategy of how to pin this evidence against them. And so, all these different types of elements, when a story can just really tell me something and surprise me at every single turn, not only one time, but various times throughout the first, second, or third act, you got me hooked. So those are just some of the elements, and also the performances. Like I stated before on one of my pros, every actor played their role very well. And when you have these characters that you can, as soon as you see their face, you're like, gosh, man, I hate this person, and I can't wait to see them basically fail at the end of the movie. So all those different types of stuff is what makes me enjoy Rebel Ridge so much. And I really can't wait to watch this again. As of today, in October, Rebel Ridge makes it to my timeless collection. I really enjoyed it. But guys, let me know what you think. What did you like about Rebel Ridge? And do you consider this film timeless? Or is it just another action movie that, yeah, you watch it once and you're done? Definitely would want to hear your thoughts and interact and discuss Rebel Ridge a little bit more. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for all of you that listened to all the way through. My name is Victor Vasquez. This has been episode number 89 of the Timeless Movie Podcast. Make sure to check out next week's episode. That way we can talk about a new film, break it down a little bit more, and figure out whether it is timeless. All right, everybody. Thank you so much, and I'll talk to you guys later.